Let's take a look at another example that you're probably very familiar with, and that is prayer. There have been a number of authors, probably most notably Larry Dossey, who have popularized this idea of prayer and prayer effectiveness. And again, Larry Dossey, another person that I've had dinner with him. We've talked about these ideas. So I'm not just speaking from having read his materials or his ideas. The problem with the prayer research, when you really look at it, is that it's been heavily methodologically critiqued. So there are a range of studies, some of which show effectiveness and some of which don't show effectiveness. And to a very great extent, the stronger the methodology, the stronger the science that's done, the worse the results are for prayer. And let me give you what is really the gold standard prayer study. There was enough of a mix of possibility that prayer might work that the Templeton Foundation put a substantial amount of money into some research that was spearheaded out of Harvard Medical School. And this is basically the results section from that paper. So this was the study that was designed to really put to bed the question of whether or not there's anything to the power of prayer. An enormous amount of money, very credible researchers, very, very expensive and well done research design. And here's the results section from that academic paper. In the two groups uncertain about receiving intercessory prayer, complications occurred in 52% of patients who received the prayer versus 51% of those who did not. Now, what they're saying here with complications is complications on the medical condition that was used as an analysis. So in this case, this was done with cardiac patients. So you're talking about heart medicine here. And you're talking about complications involving cardiac care. So complications occurred in 52% who received the prayer versus 51% who didn't. So in other words, slightly more patients that received the prayer actually did worse. But frankly, 51, 52%, I mean, those are pretty negligible. Complications occurred in 59% of patients certain of receiving intercessionary prayer, compared with 52% of those uncertain of receiving that prayer. That's a huge, huge difference. Statistically, that's a statistically notable difference between 59 and 52%. So people that thought they were getting prayed for versus people who weren't sure if they were getting prayed for. The people who thought they were getting prayed for did worse. They had more complications in their care. Again, moving on. Major events and 30-day mortality were similar across all of the groups. And the conclusion to the study is prayer itself had no effect on complication-free recovery, but the certainty of receiving prayer was associated with a higher incidence of complications. In other words, people doing worse. Here you have the gold standard prayer study. So for all that's been written about prayer, from all of the other questionable, much smaller, much more marginal studies up to this point, some were pro, some were con. The pro studies are often what you see cherry-picked to be written about, to prove that there's this power behind prayer. This is basically the current definitive study. And you can read the conclusions. So prayer is another one of those things from a mind-matter interaction standpoint that has essentially no foundation from a scientific research standpoint right now.